Welcome back to today's Love Transformation class. And for all of you who are watching today that have put a lot of time and energy into your career, but perhaps your love life hasn't really had the same energy, intention, and is not really where you want, it seems to be a common thing in our field, in the love coaching industry. We find that most of the women we work with are in their late 30s or early 40s and have really kind of realized, hey, I don't have that many years to actually create the dream family that I want. And today's special guest is an expert in this field of supporting successful, intelligent, driven women to be able to create their ideal relationship. She's a personal friend of mine and a confidant and an extremely wise being. Welcome onto today's session, Camille.
Oh, thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. It's so great to be here as always.
What I love about the work that you do is that you are actually your role model. Everything that we're going to be talking about today, you've actually walked the walk before you talk the talk, right? Tell the audience a little bit about your journey as a woman who's created their dream family and had an IVF baby after the age of 40.
And absolutely, it's been a big journey and it wasn't always easy. I'm going to be totally honest. It's not always an easy path, but I definitely was on a mission to get there. And I did whatever I needed to do. I did the coaching, the therapy, the research and everything. So and yes, thank you. I do really, I am proud of the fact that I walk my talk. So in a nutshell, before I met Alex, I had lots of disappointment when it came to love, attracted the wrong kind of guys. I also had many years where I really just had a lot of casual lovers, and that was fine. I definitely was comfortable with that part of myself, but I really, when I hit my early 30s, I definitely wanted to find someone that I could build a future with. And I was still very much sitting on the fence in regards to whether I wanted to be a mum or not, because I had a lot of inner conflicts around freedom and love and success and motherhood, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. And it took me a while to get really clear that I actually did want to be a mum, and it wasn't until about 40. And then when we tried to have a baby naturally, unfortunately it didn't work, and then I did embark on the IVF path. So long story cut short, I'm now really passionate about helping women not only in attracting their life partner later in life, but also to then prepare themselves mentally and emotionally for that next chapter, because it's a totally different path to take at that stage in your life, and it's not always an easy journey.
And it seems like a lot of the women who are of a specific age where their primary focus is finding their soulmate relationship so they can create their dream family life tend to have a few things in common. And often there's reasons why love hasn't happened for them up until that point. What are some of those reasons, do you think?
The big theme I see in my clients, and I had this myself, what is very much about that inner conflict around freedom and success and love. So with my own journey, when I grew up, my dad very much stood for freedom. He traveled a lot. He was really happy in his career. And my mum was a very traditional stay-at-home mum. And even though she actually enjoyed that, I didn't see that as a very desirable or exciting path. So subconsciously, as a 12-year-old or 10-year-old, I definitely chose the path, like I want to have his life rather than her life. And I very much identified with freedom and success, and wanting to have that great lifestyle, travel a lot. And a lot of my clients have the same conflict. Even though they want a relationship, they often the association with love is more around limitation or pain, emotional pain, or feeling stuck, where when it comes to success and being a woman on a mission and making things happen, they feel a lot more comfortable in that area in life, because it's also very much they feel like it's much easier for them to control that aspect, and they have that drive and they want to prove themselves, but often there's underneath that there's a feeling of actually not being disconnected to themselves. So sometimes the overachiever archetype is, it's very much about running away from something that needs to be looked at. And when it comes to love, of course, it's a lot more emotional, it's a lot more unpredictable. It's an energy that some of those women, including myself at the time, it's just often easier to put it in a too hard basket because we don't feel like we've got as much control over it.
Let's even unpack even further some of the reasons that some of the women that are doing that are, focusing all of their energies on their career and have put love on the back burner. What are some of the other common reasons, do you think? I mean, for me, it really was, and I didn't have a desire to have a family or even to get married, so to speak. So it didn't seem to be, I didn't have a timeline to work towards, and then the years just creeped on, right? And I know there's also a sense of like, I know that I can invest a lot of time and energy into my career and get results, but I can invest a lot of time and energy into my love life and just end up being heartbroken. What are some of the other causes, do you think, that we prioritize this over our love life?
I think another big one is that we really don't have role models, or not many role models. And I know we've talked about that before in our workshops. We don't tend to have role models for women that actually do have the cake and eat it all, like that they have the thriving, business, as well as the really amazing partner, as well as the family. So we don't have the role models, and then we just choose, again, we choose what we feel like we've got control over. That's another big thing. And I know you work a lot with women who have the anxious attachment style. So I often tend to work with women, not always, but more with the avoidant attachment style. So it's easier not to go into what's underneath. So it's easier. And I've just talked to a new client this morning, actually, and she just said to me, like, oh, it just feels so much easier not to look at it, because it just, I'm scared of what I'm going to find if I really uncover my deeper needs. And the other thing is there's a frustration with why hasn't it happened naturally? And being pissed off and frustrated about that. And then it's nearly like, oh, if I just pretend I don't even want it, it's just so much easier. So let's just not even look at anything. Let's just pretend I don't even have those needs necessarily, even to be a mother. Like, no, I'm fine. And not every woman has the need for motherhood. So I'm not saying that. Like it's definitely a challenging path in itself. But when it comes to relationship, a lot of my ideal clients I work with, they are frustrated that it just didn't happen naturally. So it's just easier then to avoid the whole conversation and not focus on it at all.
It's interesting, isn't it, that we often think that like we will meet our soulmate partner just somewhere, somehow, some way, and yet like right now at the moment we're spending a lot of time at home, so it's even more difficult to be out and about and connecting people or meeting people in the workplace. But what it means, I think, if we think that it's like just going to just happen for us, is there's a whole lot of dating and relationship skills and inner work that we haven't even developed an awareness that we probably need in order to successfully navigate that stage from meeting someone through to a lasting commitment, right? What are some of those critical things that this driven, successful woman, potentially avoidant woman, learns in order to help her through that journey?
One thing I just wanted to add before that answers your question as well is the driven woman who is very much she's confident and she's very clear on what she wants in life. Often she's confident in her sexuality, so she doesn't have problems attracting guys and having shorter encounters, but there's often a disconnect from the sexual energy to the heart energy. So that is often the big missing piece, and that is also the part that she she doesn't want to go to, because that's more around receptivity and vulnerability. So they respect us, but they don't necessarily fall in love with us because they don't feel that that softer energy, that more receptive energy from us. So that's very much part of what we need to embrace if we do want the longer relationships. And I'm not saying we have to always have a long-term committed relationship. It's about choice. And I totally believe like life can be amazing without that too. It's just I'm talking to the women who do have an amazing life already, but they also now want something more solid, something more committed, and maybe have that family with someone long term. Again, as women, we have choices now. We can have babies by ourselves. We can choose our sperm donors. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's about choice and what you choose to have, and that it is all possible, but we do need to do the inner work, unfortunately, and I was really annoyed with that too. It's like, oh, why do I have to, attend these workshops? Oh, like, shouldn't be that hard. But the good thing about it though is, the amazing thing about personal development is we discover so much more about ourselves. We end up embracing different aspects that we may have not looked at before, which then makes life so much more fulfilling anyway. So in the big picture, it's not about reaching that goal and that goal. In the big picture, I believe it's all about really coming home, to ourselves and being really fulfilled in the masculine, in our feminine energy, in our alpha male energy, and having that beautiful flow and integration, because then life is a lot more full. And that's what I'm really passionate about. Yes, we want the cake and eat it too, but we, in order to get there, maybe sometimes we're forced to do the inner work in order to really be totally connected to our true selves.
I love the fact that the inner work that we do around creating the right sense of self to have the dream relationship also has a beautiful ripple effect onto all areas of our life. And one example for me, and I know that you are really good at teaching this to your clients, is when we're working, I remember when I was working in corporate and working really long hours, working in front of the computer, managing teams, really being outcome driven and task focused. It was kind of hard to get home after a really long day and wind down and relax back into my feminine. And be in this space where I could be receptive and feminine and vulnerable and have a true connection with my partner. And I think most of us don't even realize how important that is in a relationship.
Absolutely. And it's not always easy. That's the thing. Like, it's definitely, but as driven women on a mission, we do like challenges. So it's that stretch in order to be able to then tap into more of the feminine at the end of a day, and to be able to receive more, and to be to be able to play in both those energies. But absolutely, it can be a challenge.
The other thing that I've noticed with driven, successful, outcome-focused women in their masculine is they often have like a checklist. They have a vision for what they want their life to become, and what their partner and their dream relationship will look like, which is wonderful. And I think we all need this. What are some of the pros and cons that you've seen about women coming to you with some issues over not being able to meet a man that matches this ideal man checklist? And is the checklist even, what usually happens there?
Yeah, I love that question. So I think the checklist, the way it's usually presented to me, I've worked with so many amazing clients who have this like massive list, and the problem about that is that it often actually stops them from potentially getting what would really make them happy. So some of the criterias that they might have on there are how tall he is, or the nationality, or he, what kind of work he does. It's not necessarily going to make her happy. It's nearly like it can be a way to keep that separate from actually happening. So it can be that the checklist can be so unrealistic that it's like, no, I'm not going to settle until this kind of person turns up. But even if that person would turn up, would that person be the right match? And usually the answer is no. So the checklist needs to be reassessed, and focusing more on what do you really need to feel and what do you really need to experience. And then, of course, also looking at, well, am I actually a match to that kind of guy? And again, I talked to a really amazing woman yesterday, and she said to me, like, the kind of guy I want, if he would listen to how I would sound at the moment, he would definitely not want to date me, because I'm so, I'm so frustrated, and I've got all this resentment, and I'm so negative. He wouldn't be drawn to my energy at the moment. So that's the other thing we need to be aware of. Like, yes, we can have this checklist, but are we a match to that kind of guy? And it's a really important thing to explore as well.
It's kind of a really fine line, isn't it? We know that we want to be able to have a partner that's a high caliber partner. It's what we deserve. It's our birthright. But we don't want to settle. But it's often hard to know, especially when you meet a kind of a nice guy, and it's like, yeah, it's like, am I being too fussy? Should I give him a chance? Or like, what, in your experience, we often kind of imagine that our partner is like a match to us. He's like super successful and he's this and he's that. And in your experience, like, is that actually the kind of guy that is a good match for us? Or is it sometimes someone who complements us but is different rather than being our equal in so many aspects?
Yes, great question. And I've got a perfect example actually of a past client. She really wanted someone who was, on the same level of income, and she had that big checklist. And she ended up meeting a guy he ticked all the other boxes. Like, as far as the chemistry was really strong, she felt he was very interesting, he was well traveled, they had similar values, they both wanted a family. The only thing that wasn't quite the same was he had a good job, but it wasn't like as amazing as hers. He hadn't invested in the past as much as she did, and we really explored, is it as important as you think it is? And she ended up realizing that it actually wasn't as important as she thought, because everything else was so good. She felt really great in his company. He was a slightly more warm and supportive, compassionate kind of guy than what she used to date. And it's turned out that it's been a really good match, because he does have this slightly more laid back energy. He's a great caliber guy. He's intelligent, he's attractive. Like, it's not like he's this sort of like, oh yeah, I've just settled because he's a nice guy. But what she thought was important actually wasn't as important. She needed to have that experience in order to really, then it really dropped. It's like, okay, actually, no, I really want to give this man a chance. And they're still currently in early stages of a relationship. So it's going well.
What's your advice then for the women watching that might be dating at the moment and connecting with new men, in terms of making a decision about who to invest their time and energy on, if it's just lukewarm, their feelings about him? In your experience, like, do your clients usually expect to have instant chemistry with someone, or build that can build over time? What advice would you give about continuing to date someone who you weren't instantly thinking, right, this could be my soulmate?
Generally speaking, with the kind of clients I work with, it's often different to what they thought it is. It's not this crazy, oh my God, he's the one kind of experience. It's usually more of a slower start as well, which often is a good sign. However, if it's really, really lukewarm, and they're like, oh look, he's okay, but I would never feel proud to introduce him to my friends or family, then it's probably a no. But if it's just different to the normal, if he's a bit different to what you thought was on your checklist, it's probably a good thing, and it's probably worth exploring a little bit further. And then ideally have a great session with someone like, coaching session with someone like you, and just to really dive deeper in regards to, is my self-defense, am I kicking in, and am I pushing him away because he's actually a potentially decent, healthy person, that could make me happy, or is it really not right? So sometimes we need a bit of help to get really clear on that, because we can get so in our own way with it.
And I know you teach a lot about archetypes and how to embody different archetypes in order to feel really well-rounded in the relationship and when you're connecting with men. Tell us a little bit more about like some of those feminine archetypes that really support this strong, successful woman to have beautiful intimacy in relationships and confidence.
Yes, perfect. So there's three or four main ones that I go into in my programs and one-on-one coaching, and once there's a beautiful blend with all of them, it does become a lot easier to attract the right kind of guy. So one of the key archetypes is around that charisma, that sexual confidence. So unless we're really confident with our own sexual energy, and we're at home in our bodies, we know we've got that something special, that's really important in order for us to feel empowered as women, and in order for us to to enjoy that initial stage of being flirtatious and enjoying that chemistry part. What then needs to be added to that, though, is also, I call her the bitch archetype. So she's all about having really high standards and strong boundaries. So we need to be really clear on what we say yes to and what we say no to. And at the early stages of dating, that's quite important, that we don't just sort of that we don't just go in too deep too soon. And even as strong independent women, sometimes when we do meet someone that seems to tick all the boxes, often we go more into the little girl, and we don't hold our, we don't tend to stay strong with our boundaries. So boundaries are hugely important as well. Another important one is all about it's about vulnerability and receptivity, and we touched on that. Like, a man really needs to feel some of that softer energy in order to feel that deeper emotional connection, and in order for him to also feel like he could actually be the strong man, next to us, even though we're totally capable of living life by ourselves. Of course, he needs to feel that there is a place for him there as well. And then later on in the relationship, the nurturer, more of the mother archetype, especially if you do want to become a mother. I needed to work on that quite a lot, because that didn't come naturally to me. I'm not really domestic. I'm not, I don't really cook much. I'm nurturing with my clients and female friends, but not so much with my men, with my relationship. It's coming out more now, but that's something I needed to work on, because I was more comfortable in the seductress archetype, and rather than that more, the more stable, nurturing archetype. And that's something that is also important in order to then feel, in order for the relationship to have that, that beautiful nurturing energy that we then can bring to the relationship and the family as well. So once all of those are in a nice, they're integrated, and you can flow from one to the other quite effortlessly, it just becomes a lot easier to allow relationships to last longer. It's nearly like, all the elements are flowing, the fire, the water, the earth. You can look at it from that perspective. It's just then a lot easier to maintain something long term.
So for the women that are watching that have been prioritizing their work life, their professional life, or other areas than their relationship, but they do realize there are only a certain number of years of that childbearing window still open, and this is increasingly becoming a loud and clear priority. but maybe still having these inner conflicts that we've been talking about. Like, what are the things they should be looking at, first of all, to start to shift that focus back, or to be on the right path to create their dream relationship before it's too late, essentially?
So apart from getting an amazing coach, I would say it's really important to for them to give themselves that time to really connect to what do I really want in the next 3 or 5 years, and really making and connecting to that goal emotionally, really taking the time to tune in, to journal, and to really making that decision of what do I need to prioritize, and then, what can I do differently. So for example, if someone might be listening and they're 37, they want a family, but they're dating a guy who's 10 years younger, and he's told her that he clearly doesn't want a commitment. It might be time to let go of that younger guy, or that friends with benefits. It might be time to create more space for what she really wants. So that would just be a practical example, really looking at, okay, what's currently in the way? How do I not prioritize this goal? Do I maybe need to stop all these other activities every night of the week that keep me busy, and that keep me maybe too busy from actually creating space for someone to come into my life?
I think that's a really good point that you brought up there, Camille, as well. It isn't always our focus on our career that can leave us, approaching the end of our childbearing window. And often a lot of the women that I work with have had an on again, off again type of relationship with someone that's lasted for 10 years, when we've really strongly attached to someone in the hope that over time things will change, or the situation will be different, and not being able to release that relationship. That almost feels like lost years, doesn't it? Yeah, I know that a lot of women can relate. And I mean, whether it's 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, sometimes it can feel like, wow, I've really wasted my time there. Not always the case though. But I want to talk as well to the women that are watching that might relate to this situation, but also might be having these thoughts like, well, there's nothing I can do because where I live, there's no decent men, or running some stories around, I've gone through all of Tinder, Bumble and Hinge, and there's just, there's no one left, or all the great men in that age bracket, they all want younger women. All of these, I guess, beliefs that they might have that might be limiting them or blocking them from actually investing and really believing that this is possible for them.
Yes, totally. And I mean, that's where it's so important to do the inner work, because again, as an example, a woman I talked to a few days ago, who she's decided to do some coaching with me now, but she said, like, part of me just feels like, I walk my dog, and I go for, and I look at all those guys like, not good enough. No, don't like him. Oh my God, he would never be good enough for me. He's too short. Oh, he's probably got a shitty job. Like so she's basically focusing on lack. But then when we explored a little bit further, was her fear. It's actually her deeper fear of intimacy, and then there was part of her that felt like, oh well, I don't really feel, even though I've got all these things deep down, I still don't feel good enough because of some story that she's telling herself about her weight or this or that. Like, it could be anything. So that's where it's really important to make the decision. Okay, I've got all these negative beliefs. How can I empower myself? Do I want to just keep on focusing on why it's not possible, or do I want to be open to, well, maybe it could be possible, which of course it is, and what do I need to, how do I need to turn up differently? And this summit is a perfect opportunity to listen to all these amazing experts, and there'll be some aha moments with every interview, and then just taking that power back and going within. It's like, okay, well, which belief do I now need to release, or what new action could I now take? And just really, it's about making a new decision.
What advice do you have, Camille, for someone who is planning on focusing their time and attention on creating their soulmate relationship and family, but they have decided right now, like I'm focusing on this work project, or I've just started with a personal trainer and I really want to lose 10 kilos, and then, or I'm just about to put a deposit down on a house and start to set, and then once I do that. So I know often we set these milestones of things that we want to achieve before, but then either the milestone moves or something different happens and we have another focus. Like, what advice do you have for someone who has something like this, where they're like, yes, this is a priority and I'll do it at this elusive point in time that we believe is fixed in the future?
It's about like, okay, looking deeper, like, is this a defense mechanism kicking in that I feel like I always have to be more perfect or be more accomplished? And then of course it's just that it's a block, it's a defense mechanism. I guess that's the main thing, really exploring whether it's a defense mechanism or whether it's a real thing. Then really just tuning in and really checking in with yourself, like, what am I doing here? Am I actually delaying things because I'm scared of it? Or is it now really time to prioritize? But it's always good to question that, because as women on a mission, we do tend to be very much focused on the external world, and we keep on wanting to tick more boxes to feel more, to feel more significant, and that's all fine. But then we want to make sure that we don't miss out on something that's actually really, really, truly important.
I'd be interested to hear your opinion if there's someone listening who does have a genuine situation, say, later in the year, I'm planning to move and I need to wait until then because it's no point me meeting someone here, or like whatever the reason might be, it feels really genuine to them. Right now, it's not ideal for me to actually meet my soulmate, but there's a certain time in the future. Do you think it's still worthwhile dating and practicing those dating skills, even if it's not really, you're not giving it 100%? And this might apply for other situations as well. Is dating just for fun and practice something you would suggest? Or would you suggest to wait, focus on what you need to do, and then when you can give it your focused time, attention and effort, then, get back on the apps and start then? I know every situation's a little bit different, but what's your take on that?
I would say, generally speaking, the time is always now. And even if it is, like, we can learn something from every interaction. We can learn something from every, especially the kind of women I work with tend to avoid intimacy more. So it depends on who, depends on who I'm talking to here. But generally speaking, I would say the time is always now, and there's always an opportunity for learning something through a new interaction or a new date, or getting more clear on what you really want and what you don't want. And it comes up all the time, that question too, because a lot of my clients do often travel a lot too. So I do believe the time is always now, and really just focus on giving yourself the opportunity to connect. Even though, there might not be the person you end up choosing, but every person will bring you closer to what you're really wanting.
I know I have a lot of clients, as you would as well, that might be currently sort of swiping and maybe connecting with some guys on the apps, feeling really frustrated and disappointed a lot of the time, completely out of vibration with it. And I often say then we'll turn it off. Like if you're already expecting that it's, that the guy is just going to start trying to sext you, or the date is, it's going to be a catfish situation. Like if you already think it's not going to go well, it's probably not going to go well. How would someone know though? Like, because we can just have a really tiring kind of off day. We don't necessarily want to just cut everything out because of that. What sort of advice would you give around that?
That's a good point, actually. And I do think there's often, when things don't flow and things really, I always advise, like, reset, turn everything off, focus on the inner work for a while. And then, so definitely there are times when it's really appropriate to and that's where again it's about that integration of masculine, feminine, right? Sometimes we want to, the tide's going in or out. Sometimes we feel like we want to be out in the world more, and sometimes it's time, just when it doesn't flow, reset, have a total break, and really just do more of the inner work to then start again. Absolutely.
One of the beautiful practices that we're going to recommend that everyone goes across and does now is a powerful guided visualization process to, I guess, uncover the deep inner conflicts that someone might have about believing they can have it all, like the career and the family as well. Tell us a little bit about that process, and then we'll go into some final thoughts.
Beautiful. It's a combination of a guided visualization and for those of you who are familiar with NLP, parts integration, where it's really like a mini coaching session as well that I've recorded for the ladies. So it's very much about diving deeper into the big desire around the vision, and then uncovering the parts that are either aligned with that or not, and the inner conflicts, and then recognizing those. And there's a process around integration, which is it's a really powerful process. So excited to be sharing it with the women who resonated.
For anyone who feels like they want to be able to walk the forward path now in a bit more of a aligned way, having all of their goals merging together and being able to prioritize everything so that that dream vision can really, really come to life. And that's what we're all here to support you with. Do you have any final thoughts for the girls?
The biggest thing is, absolutely, it is possible. It is possible for you, as long as you're willing to really connect with different aspects and be open to a new approach. Everything's absolutely possible for you, and you have all the support that you need. There's so many amazing resources. So it's really about connecting to the vision and feeling re-inspired and connecting to that belief, because we have amazing opportunities as women now, and we do have so many more choices than what our grandmothers would have had. It's our mission to make the most of them and not hold ourselves back. So it's our mission to really allow that amazing vision to come together.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being such an incredible role model and mentor and leader and support for all the women that are on this journey, and really just helping them click some of those pieces into place so they can actually have it all. And it's just such a joy to see the success and the results of your clients as well. If you'd like to connect with Camille, I would strongly encourage you to definitely explore her guided visualization process. All of her social media links and some additional information, freebies, and everything as usual is below the video today. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for investing this time in you, and look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow. Bye for now.